There are a lot of World War II movies. The Second World War has served as the backdrop for more films than any other conflict. It's not even close. It leaves all the other wars behind it in a rubble-strewn crater. A ton had already been made in the mere 20 years between the official outbreak of the war in Europe in 1939 and the release of Ballad of a Soldier in 1959. Prior to this episode, I've already covered quite a few of them on this show. That's Come and See, Ivan's Childhood, The Cranes Are Flying, Alexander Sokharov's The Sun, Vittoria De Sica's Sunflower, and the 2013 Stalingrad, in case you're keeping score. And that's not even counting Beanpole, set in Leningrad in the immediate aftermath of the war, or others where its legacy is very much present. Here I'm thinking of 1960s classics like Kira Muratova's Brief Encounters and Marlon Hutsiev's I Am 20, or more recently, another Sakharov film, Russian Ark. So you might be asking yourself, do I really need to watch another World War II film? And if so, what makes Ballad of a Soldier in particular worthy of my time? For one thing, it was made by Ukrainian-born director Grigori Chukhrai, and he makes a point of acknowledging the suffering the war caused to nationalities within the USSR besides the Russians. For another, the film's understated brilliance gained it critical and awards recognition in the West upon its original release, at a time when the Cold War stacked the deck against that happening for cultural products from the other side of the Iron Curtain. And its appeal has endured. In 2002, 40 plus years on from its original run, the Criterion collection released it as spine number 148. Again, if you're keeping score, at the time of recording, they're at nearly 1300. It was only their sixth Soviet movie, fifth if you count Eisenstein's Ivan the Terrible Parts 1 and 2 as a single movie. Which reminds me, I really need to get around to Part 2 one of these days. But I digress. So, how is Ballad of a Soldier holding up since then? In one glaring aspect, the movie has dated badly. In a glancing reference, the film's opening voiceover calls its Russian soldier protagonist a liberator. Such descriptions have probably rung hollow from the time it became clear that Soviet troops would be staying indefinitely in many countries of Eastern and Central Europe following the war's end. Indeed, in view of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact that served as the precursor to the Nazi and then Soviet invasions of Poland in September 1939, extreme suspicion about such claims of liberation go back even further. It's also worth bearing in mind that the film came out a mere 3 years after the Hungarian Revolution of 1956 was brutally suppressed. I'm recording this in 2025, and coming to the film 3 years plus since the people running the current iteration of the Russian state escalated their murderous war against Ukraine, the irony is perhaps more bitter than ever. However, as Professor Birgit Boimers has written, Ballad of a Soldier dismantles the concept of heroism and is interested, quote, more in the everyday rather than in the battlefield, end quote. The film captures war's tragic destructions of lives and human potential more succinctly than most. It also foregrounds its lead character's kindness, empathy, and fortitude in a way that makes it a worthy spiritual successor of Tolstoy's War and Peace, and well worth investigating. So, join me, Ali Pitts, a history graduate, former Moscow resident, and film writer, and my guest, Matthew Chadourne, for our discussion of Grigori Chukhrai's Ballad of a Soldier.
Tatiana, hear me.
Вот скажи мне, американец, в чем сила?
А вы что, собираетесь на ней жениться?
Да.
Ух, красота-то какая, лепота.
Таможня дает добро.
И вообще не называй меня, пожалуйста, Вероникой. Кто я? Вот кто я?
Я вернусь, мама!
Don't torture me, I can't live without him.
Hello and welcome to a Russian-Soviet movie podcast. I am your host, Ali Pitts, and as always, I am joined by a guest, and today my guest is Matthew Chadourne. Hi, Matt. Thank you very much for joining me. Now,
Hi, Ali. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. So we're changing up our format a little bit. So elsewhere on this feed, Matt and I will be having a longer, more general conversation / interview about some of the stuff he is doing. So do listen to that as well. But in a nutshell, for people who haven't listened to that yet, who are you and what do you do, Matt?
I'm Matthew Chadourne. I'm a comedian and a podcaster and a comedy producer. Currently I have the podcast Saint Misbehavin, which is a podcast about saints from people who aren't. It's just a monthly look into the lives of a saint in an ongoing exploration of what it means to be good. We just kind of go through the lives of an obscure saint and just have fun with that. Just me and my co-host Anna Domini, who is a theologian. So we have that's a fun listen. If people want to subscribe to that, that'd be amazing. And listen. I hope you enjoy it. You can just subscribe and let it download in your feed just so I get the numbers. That's fine. You don't have to listen. Yeah. But if you want to listen, I think you'll really enjoy it. I also run the Oxford.
Both are options.
Yeah. I also run the Oxford Comedy Festival every July here in the city of Oxford. It's 54 comedians over the course of the month. Amazing people, big names from TV, up and comers, brand new talent, 50 amazing shows from some amazing people. So I recommend checking that out, oxfordcomedyfestival.com or oxfordcomedyfestival.co.uk. So, because it's a UK-based thing.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Okay, so we've been talking about doing this episode for a wee while, and the film we wanted to cover, this was actually your idea. So the film we're talking about today is Ballad of a Soldier by Grigori Chukhrai, and I mean it's a Criterion collection film, so you can't say that it's obscure, but it's not Andrei Tarkovsky. So tell me about your history with this film and why you brought it to the table, because I had not got around to it, so I'm really glad that you're giving me the opportunity to watch it and talk about it.
I'm glad you're giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I love it. This is, you first reached out to me last year around about St. Audio Podcast Festival, which was a podcast festival I was running. And I remember writing and we were messaging back and forth, and I was like, oh, hey, if you ever want to talk about Ballad of a Soldier, absolutely love it. And that's been a year and a half from now, and I'm glad we're finally getting
around
to talking about it. So no, the right life, just schedules and everything.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's nobody's fault. Don't be mad at Ali or me. We're finally giving you this content that you know you want.
Yep. Sweet content.
And it's going to be great. Some people have been downloading this podcast for years, being like, when are they going to talk about Ballad of a Soldier? And we're finally here.
Finally gratifying that.
Finally doing
it. Need. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a Criterion. That's how I found out. I've been obsessed with the Criterion collection for years. And there was a period where I was going through kind of a bad breakup, and I was an apartment manager at the time, and so I was just basically at home all the time. And I was just getting Criterions from the library. This was in Seattle, and you could have up to 100 things on hold, and you could have up to 100 things checked out. And so I was just putting every Criterion on hold, and then I would just get them, and it was just churning through them. Sometimes I watched 2 and 3 a day just to keep on top of it, because I was just getting all these movies coming through. Anyways, but so I was just watching, and it was an amazing experience. It was, I got a little burnout on it after a while, but I found some of my favorite films of all time, just kind of films I didn't know about. I've discovered so much new stuff going through that. The Criterion collection, we kind of talked a little bit about this on the interview, which is the idea of a curated experience. I really like the idea of a curated experience. People going in and saying this is this is something we think is really amazing. We think you'd like it. Criterion does a great job of that. They find stuff that's very, famous. They have like Citizen Kane in there. They have like big famous films. Your listeners, if they love Russian Soviet films, there's a number of I think almost all the Tarkovskys are in there. There's Larissa Shepko. There's who did Letter Never Sent?
That's Mikhail Kalatozov, who we talked about on the interview as well. So
yeah,
yes,
and he did Cranes Are Flying too, right? Or
he did. He did indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like those are two kind of amazing films. So there's a lot of stuff in there. But it's like a beautifully eclectic collection of just films that are pretty great, and for the most part, their hit rate is again very high. There's been very few movies I've seen from the Criterion Collection been like, well, that was terrible.
Why did they pick that?
I was like, that was an odd choice.
Make me watch it. Yeah.
There are films I've watched from the Criterion Collection where I was like, well, I never want to watch that again. I didn't enjoy it, but I could see why they'd maybe pick it. But
it's meritorious, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I came across it then, and in this deluge of films, and it really stuck with me because it's a really powerful film, and I just it made me cry at the end, which I'm a bitter, heartless old man, and so to get for something to reach so deep into me and make me elicit emotion like that, it really stuck with me, and it still makes me tear up every time I watch it. I know how it's going to end. The ending always gets me. That's how I came across it, and I've really enjoyed it ever since. I'm sad to say I've never really followed up with this director and seen what other films they've done. I don't know if they have I kind of looked on the IMDb the other day, and there was nothing in there I recognized, or there is a film they made before this called the 44th or something, the 41st or something like that.
41st, yes.
41st, yeah. That sounded actually really interesting, and I was like, oh, I should really look that up.
Yeah, I have not seen that one yet. It's been on my watch list for ages, as you might imagine, as being the person that I am and doing the show that I am doing. But yeah, haven't got to that one yet, but I'm pretty sure that it's the same cinematographer, Sergei Urusevsky, I think, who also worked with Kalatozov on several of his films, Letter Never Sent, Cranes Are Flying, and I Am Cuba. So he's not the cinematographer on this one, even though it looks gorgeous. But I did wonder, is it him? Because it looks so good.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, he wasn't super prolific, but I did a little bit of research on him, and he went into more of a production side of things. He sounds like such a fascinating guy. I'm just looking up my little bit of notes here. Yeah, so he went on to head up this thing called the ETK, the Experimental Creative studio, where bonuses for the filmmakers were tied to box office performance. It was a relatively short-lived experiment around trying to make films that people wanted to see.
Right, so they're trying to gin up Soviet blockbusters.
Yeah, kind of, because the ticket sales, it's all about, well, when the state runs all of the businesses in the country, if people don't show up to your film, then that's just a loss-making enterprise, and you actually, and you want people to you want to make a profit so that you can pay for the buses and all of the public services that you need to run well as you're trying to build socialism. So
and more cynically, it's you want people to go to your movies and enjoy the entertainment, so that they're not just sitting at home thinking about how much they hate the state,
being bummed out about how this is not living up to the marketing materials. Yeah, quite. Yeah, there is a lot of that.
If life is just working in a factory and standing in line, it's you want to have people be able to go and relax and enjoy some movies. So
yeah, and that is one of the things about certainly like Thor era and even like 60s and 70s Soviet films is they, as I've discovered doing this show, the ones that have endured are surprisingly entertaining, given like the stereotypes that we grow up with in the West, that everything is just like brown and grey and boring. It's like, no, it isn't, because like you don't want people to be bummed out.
Yeah, no, and
because
and they don't just want like it's funny, the ones that endure, they don't feel like, you don't feel the hands of the state on them as much. There's a really funny one, which is a past episode of yours, is one of the first times I ran into this, or remember being so like blindsided by it, was I went and saw Lita, Queen of Mars.
Oh my goodness,
which is a great Soviet movie, and a silent film. And there's just like two, kind of like at the end of the first section and at the climax, there's just these two just like big propaganda, capital P propaganda.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because at one point it was like, they, you know, it's like, I forget what it was. It's something like, these people were in love, and but they had to be separated because he had to go work for the state and like do the good of the people or whatever. And then it does have legitimately, like, they do a Soviet style revolution. They basically do the October Revolution on Mars and overthrow the Queen of Mars. Yeah. And there's, you know,
who had it coming, to be fair.
It's fair. Yeah. I mean, like, no, and like, and the Tsars had it coming too, you know, but like, but it's so great. And there's, you know, he's giving this rousing speech, and then there's this footage of this guy creating a hammer or a sickle. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's so brilliant. I love this so much. It's so out of nowhere, and it's so great. And you're just like, oh, you just feel like the senses, like the state's just like, can you put a little something in here for us? And it's really funny, and it's just like, it's great on it's a fun movie on so many levels, and it's great. And then there's just occasionally they're just like, let's put a really fine point on this for the people in the back who are not getting it. But it's really funny. I do love it because what it is, it's this guy like hammering a sickle, and it's clearly footage in reverse of a guy destroying a sickle. But then and it's such a fun, anyways, it's really great. But this one, I was kind of watching that this time with kind of thinking like, how much can you see like Soviet film, like how much of the state is like pushing on this, and you really just don't feel it. At least I don't, anyways. I don't. I didn't really feel. It does feel like such a human story that could be, you know, it is set in Soviet Russia. It is made there. It is set like 10 years, 5 years. What is this? 40? It's 59.
59.
59. So it's set like 15 years in the past during the World War II. But you don't necessarily feel like the character's ever like espousing like state propaganda, or if he is, it's in a very subtle way.
You really have to kind of like personally like really like go looking for it to find any like ideology. It's certainly not like bashing you over the head, but that's the thing about the film, that's just, it's humanity of like its main character and everybody that he meets along the way, you know, just kind of the parade of life, you know, that he goes through on his journey home. So anyways, we'll get amazing. Yeah. Great. I just thought I would drop in a couple of bits of trivia before we get into like the spoilerific discussion proper. Yeah, so this film was very highly regarded when it came out. It's actually Oscar nominated. It got a nomination for Best Writing in brackets Story and Screenplay written directly for the screen.
I saw that it was nominated for an Oscar, and I was like, oh, it must be Best Foreign Film, and I was like, oh, screenplay. Wow, that's surprising. It's not surprising, but it's a great screenplay. It's really well done. But I would have thought it would have been foreign film, or I don't know if that's a category they had at the time, but
Yeah, I think that some version of that was, but yeah, you don't often see like non-English language films turning up in
Yeah.
in that category or the equivalent to that category. So I was surprised to see that was the thing that it got recognition for. It lost out to a film called Splendor in the Grass, which I have never seen. So who
I've heard
knows?
of, but I've never.
Okay. Yeah, the title like, vaguely rings a bell, but yeah, never seen it. Don't know anything about it. It got a BAFTA. It actually won a thing, and brilliant titling for an award. It was best film from any source.
Yeah, yeah. Just like, who knows where it came from? I don't know.
Yeah, it just appeared in our cinema and we watched it. So it won that. And
nominated for a Palme d'Or, or did it win the Palme d'Or?
It didn't, I don't think, but it was like part of the official selection for Cannes, I think in 1960. It's weird in terms of like the Oscar and Bafta. It comes up in 1962, so this just film distribution a lot slower when everything is still like physical cans of film.
Yeah.
And yeah, just not living in the internet age. In terms of BAFTA, also the film star Vladimir Ivashov, he who plays Alexei, he lost out to Paul Newman in The Hustler. So, I mean, you're probably going to lose to Paul Newman.
There's no shame in losing out to Paul Newman. And
no,
The Hustler's a pretty great film too. So.
I've not seen it, so I do need to check that out. I'm trying to think like what Paul Newman films I have seen now, but I must not let myself get distracted on that tangent.
Like we should start naming Paul Newman movies. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Cool Hand Luke,
we need
HUD. But yeah, I was surprised at how, like you said, it's not super well known. It's not one that people talk about necessarily when they talk about Russian cinema, Soviet cinema. But at the time it was like super highly regarded and like well respected. I was looking into this myself in the run up to this. I was reading some essays and like looking into the IMDb and everything. And just it was nominated for just a ton of awards and was considered by many at the time like the best Soviet film to have come out that anybody had seen in the Western world, So it's kind of like been a bit forgotten, which is annoying. Even the Criterion, like it's I don't know. For those of you who don't know, the Criterion Collection has like 1,200 titles at this point. They nicely numbered them for completists and like obsessives so that you can get all the numbers. And this is like 150 something, 157, I think. And so it's fairly early on in their run. And it's what they'll do is they'll release something on DVD. They used to release stuff on DVD as Blu-ray technology and 4K technology has improved. They'll often do re-releases. So they'll clean them up, upscale them to 4K and whatnot, and put out a new edition, often with like new features and stuff like this.
Yeah.
This one has not been upgraded yet, which is a shame. It's one of the ones I'd really love to see. Like the DVD version is great. It looks great. But again, I that's the one I have, like from 2002. It's like I was in secondary school when Criterion released this DVD. So it's like I think of DVD as being like a new technology. It's like no, it's a long time ago now. Yeah, some of them are. It's not as bad. Some of the cause I have some ones from the 90s when they first started doing them, and they're formatted for standard definition televisions, so they don't necessarily look that great, but this looks great, and
just gorgeous.
It is. Yeah. It's like so because they put a lot of work into the DVDs. I mean, as far as physical media goes, it's tough to beat Criterion in terms of like the packaging, the special features, like they're just beautiful artwork on the box, like everything they'll put in. There was a nice essay in the. So did you read the essay that was in the?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, that was nice too. It was good insight in there. I mean, they'll have an essay from a film scholar for every film, and they'll put that stuff in there. And So it's good stuff. But yeah, unfortunately, this one hasn't been upgraded yet, which is a shame. And I'm sure they're getting around to the back catalog. They're upgrading a lot of stuff, and then
There are a lot of films.
There's a lot
there
of
are a lot of good films out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes. Yeah. Little random bit of like going back to the acclaim point. It was like spoken about in the same breath as like some of the Italian films that were coming out, like the not so much Rossellini because he was still working, but he was a little bit earlier in terms of like his big films. But now I am drawing a blank on on famous Italian director Fellini. That's the one. Fellini and Antonioni. Those are the guys. It was being like talked about in the same breath. Although like a French critic for Le Monde was comparing it with those films and said, from time to time, it is healthy to see normal people on the screen.
Yeah. Did he compare it with De Sica? He's the one who did The Bicycle Thief, right?
Yes, yeah. I didn't read that.
No, I wouldn't. I don't know. I was
like...
just thinking, like, in terms of like Italian neorealism, like De Sica is the guy for like having like real people, real emotion on screen, like just this and having that come through so powerfully.
Have you seen the Sunflower by him?
No, what's that? No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, okay. So that is Sophia Loren and Mastroianni. I'm forgetting his first name, but they are 1940s Italians. He gets called up to the army and he gets sent off to fight in the Soviet Union because World War II. Right. And he disappears, and it's a story about him surviving that experience and them eventually being reunited. It's well worth seeking out, and yeah, we did an episode way back. So yes, it's still out on the feed.
Oh yeah, I'll have to check that out.
We should talk about this film a bit more. So we will now launch into the spoilery bit, and as podcast tradition dictates, we have a thing we say at this point, and it is what Yuri Gagarin said as he was launching into the cosmos. And it actually happened. It's a line of dialogue in this film as well. It's basically the word for off we go, and that word is поехали. So we will be doing that in 3, 2, 1. Поехали. Hey, strategic hey, we are back.
Okay.
It's a line of dialogue in the film. There's some strategic, or maybe not so strategic.
Hey, that's right. Oh, sorry, I forgot about that.
I was going for a pun, but it did not work. But that's fine because we've been talking about comedy, and is this film a comedy? Maybe we'll get into that.
It's got some really funny moments. It's got some.
It really does. It really does.
I'll talk about what I get. There's a scene. All right, well, yeah, we can talk about it later.
Yeah. Matthew, Chadourne, and I are getting into the spoilers of Ballad of a Soldier. So if you haven't watched it yet, and you do not want to know what happens, This is time to pause the podcast and go and watch it and then come back, and then you will not have any surprises about what happens. So,
can I just say something that
Sure.
The thing I love about this movie is it tells you how it ends. Right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like the first thing it tells you is that this kid is dead. And he never comes back from war. And but then the next thing it does, and it's the most amazing trick, is you immediately forget it. Like it blasts it from your mind because it just goes into this thing, and you're just with this kid and you're going on. And I forget it every time. And then when it comes back around, we can talk about the ending, but it's like, yeah, but,
Sure.
But like, I find it amazing. It's where it tells you up front what's happening, what's going to happen. And then you every moment is beautiful and perfect. And you're never dwelling on it. I don't know. Anyways. So, but yeah.
Yeah. No, as a screenplay move, it's a ballsy one to spoil yourself. Like, it has that in common with another film from, I guess, like about 10 years before, Sunset Boulevard, which starts with... Oh, sorry, I spoiled that. It's not a spoiler if it's literally the first thing that happens.
It starts with him floating dead in a pool.
Yeah.
And then it's just basically, I bet you're wondering how I got here. Not, but like...
Yeah. Yes.
But like, yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing trick. And I guess, I don't know, like, I always forget, and the film kind of makes you forget, and then I don't know, when it comes back up around again at the end, you're just like, oh yeah, I guess I did know that. And I don't know if I don't know if it increases the poignancy of every scene where you're just like, it's not something I consciously think about. Every time I watch it, I'm just not consciously thinking that this kid, this is, we're seeing, not only are we seeing this short leave from war, we're seeing some of his final days. And like, and God, he's 19. Like, the older I get, the more 19 just seems like such a stupid age to say. A stupid age.
Yeah,
like,
you're legally an adult in the two jurisdictions that we grew up in. But yeah, yes, you've got a long way to go to being an adult.
I know, but it's just like the idea that you just send some kid off to war at 19 is just like, just as I get older, the more I find that just abominable.
It's so abhorrent.
But that's part of the beauty of the film. Anyways, sorry, go ahead. No, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So just before we carry on that, pulling the film apart, could you give us like a sort of, in a nutshell, what happens? So we know he does well. What happens? Yeah.
I mean, it starts out with the mom, and then they tell us we're going to talk about this soldier. You see this kid on the battlefield, Alexei. Oh, it's not Alexei. It's
yeah. Well, this is Trixie. This is Trixie Russian diminutive. So
Okay.
is Alexei is like his given name, but Alyosha is the nickname. It's because it's so much. It's so much less elaborate in English, because you're Matt and I'm Ali, and like our full names are Matthew and Alistair. But yes, no, Alexei is Alyosha. Yeah.
So Alexei. Okay.
Alexei. Yeah.
So you start out with this kid. He's on a battlefield. He kind of through dumb luck, he's a signalman. He's like a radio operator. He, through happenstance, destroys 2 German tanks, just kind of like on accident.
2 out of 4 that are coming at him.
2 out of 4, yeah. He's being chased by these German tanks, which is, I don't know, is horrible. At some point, you think that these Germans are just trying to run this kid down because they think it's like, you just imagine the Germans cackling in this tank, like just really evil Nazis.
Yeah, it's like, why don't you just shoot him?
Yeah, just somebody pop out of the turret and shoot this kid. Like, don't run him down.
Put him out of his misery. Yeah, because
it's like he can't outrun it. I mean, tanks aren't fast, but he can't outrun a tank, and they seem to be chasing him for miles. But he manages to fall into a foxhole where I guess everybody's abandoned or dead, and he finds a bazooka and he manages to destroy 2 tanks. And he's brought before the general. The general is going to give him a commendation. He said, instead of a commendation, I got a letter from my mom. I want to go back because the roof is leaking. And can I have a couple of days? He asked for 1 day, and the general's like, you never make it back in 1 day. I'll give you 6 days. 2 days to travel, 2 days to fix the roof, 2 days to get back.
Lovely little rule of three there.
It's so good. The more we talk about this, the more the screenplay, the more I'm like, yes, this screenplay nomination was it's amazing because everything
On point.
It's so on point. You set up who this kid is. You set up the ticking clock of the movie. You know, he's got 6 days. He's got to be back here at the front. And so he goes on this journey across Russia. I don't fully understand the geography of it, and maybe you can explain this. But
I am not your man for that.
Okay, because I don't know. It doesn't really matter. All you know is
doesn't. It's a ways. It's a ways, and as you say, the clock is ticking.
And the clock is ticking. Every moment that he stops, every moment that slows him down, you're constantly thinking. You're in your head. You're like 6 days. You got 2 days. You got 2 days. You got 2 days. You're constantly thinking about these 6 days. That's the thing that like is really propelling you. And you're watching this kid, and every decision he makes, and every decision that's made for him, like you're just like constantly in your head. You're just like 6 days. You just got to get back to my 6 days. The mother who we meet, in the first scene, separate from him, you see her over the credits, and so you know who he's getting to. You know where he's going. You have this image in of a mother waiting in a farm. It's such a it's such a universal thing, right? Because it's all these like farm boys that got, churned up and just thrown into this meat grinder, And so this is like this. She could be on a farm in Kansas. She could be in a farm in the Cotswolds. I don't know if they have farms or wherever, somewhere in the central, somewhere in Cornwall or someplace in England or in France. It's just, it doesn't matter. It's like it's such a universal, the universality of it. Anyways. But so yeah, he's going. So along the way, he meets a veteran, an injured veteran. He meets. He gets. No, before he even leaves, he runs into some random soldiers, and they ask him to bring some soap to his wife. Like it was the entire regiment's soap, which was 2 bars of soap, which is just such a horrifying thought. Like the whole regiment's got 2 bars of soap, and they just sort of like, give this to his wife. Why not? And they bully the sergeant into giving them the
yeah, who really does. Yeah, he's got this small bag, and he's got no. So this has to go around all of you, and like you taking 2 out is yeah.
Well, I love that they're just like, give him one of the bar. We have 2 bars. Well, then give him 1 bar, and then he's just like, just take both bars. It doesn't matter at this point. And so he's got this task. He gets talked into doing this task. And yeah, I don't know. We follow this kid. He meets a girl. He has all kinds of misadventures, trying to get home. And by the time he gets home, he's been slowed down so much that he only has time to hug his mother and give her a scarf that he bought along the way. And they exchange a handful of lines, and then he has to get back in a truck and leave. And then at the end, it tells you like he never made it back. And again, which it reminds you, it doesn't just tell you, it reminds you that he never made it back. And you're like, oh yeah. And it's like a punch in the stomach every damn time. It really gets me every time. I'm just like, oh, he didn't make it back. Because you live with this kid for an hour and a half. Actually, not even that. It's like 88 minutes, which is like such a brilliant, I don't know.
It's delightfully brisk. It just
it's propulsive,
rattles
right?
along.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He goes from train to train and just trucks or just trying to get along the road and no, it's brilliant. And he just meets so many different people along the way, and having different experiences with the war, and with life, and yeah, it's great. Yeah. Anyways, so that's kind of the general plot. It's this kid getting home. He gets home just to hug his mom, maybe send him his greatest hug, and and it's all been building up to that, and and then he has to leave, and it's so bittersweet at the end.
Yeah.
And then it's just tragic because then they remind you that he's dead, and you're like, oh yeah, I knew that. I think that if they just drop that in, I think it's important that they tell you at the front. So when they drop it in at the end, it's not like just a real fuck you rug pull. It's like,
yeah,
we told you this.
Yeah. This is not really a surprise. Yeah. It's like all. Okay, maybe not all. The vast majority, let's say, of art is going for an emotional reaction.
Oh, yeah.
But is not cheap about it, because, as you say, they level with you up front. It's just like, don't get too attached to this kid, because he is. I mean, this is not the tone of their.
No, I mean, like, no. And the thing about the whole movie is just attaching you to this kid. You're just
yeah.
I love this kid. This is like, he's like the sweetest little sweet boy. He's just so nice and like so human and just, you know. But I think if it was just like a twist at the end, and it's like, oh, and by the way, he didn't make it back.
It's like, haha. It's more grown up than that, and in terms of like the gut punch, the last line of dialogue, I think, is him saying "Ja vernius," I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I mean, in a non Arnie way.
Yeah. No, it's just a sweet. He's just he's reassuring his mother. The last thing he does is he reassures his mother,
and it's like, I'll
be back. And
you poor sweet kid.
And it's just
you don't know the odds. Yeah.
And and it's got this coda, which is, it's like he could have been all these things. He could have been a great builder. He could have been a great tender of gardens. And instead, all he became was a soldier. And I mean, that's the thing with it's called Ballad of a Soldier. He not really a soldier. Like, that's the thing, is you realize he's so not a soldier. And he starts out, he's not even like a combat, like, he's not a member of the infantry. He is a radio man. He is just the guy who runs the radio. He's at the forward post, like with this other guy. They're scouting what's going on. They're sending messages back.
Yeah, much older guy who buys it
immediately
very soon.
Killed. Yeah. He's like, we got to get out of here. And then trying to get out of there, he gets machine gunned. But he sticks to his position, and he does a heroic act where he calls in the tanks, which to the front lines, trying to do his duty. And you see, and you get a good insight into that kid. He's just like, okay, he's going to do his duty. He's somebody who believes in these things, So when the guy's like, you need to be back here in 6 days, you're like, there's no chance this kid's not going to go back. Right?
Yeah.
That's never the tension of the movie is whether he's going to return to the front line. Because, which might have been in another, and that's another movie, right? That's a whole thing where you could see people, and the mom is like, don't go. And, he has got to go. Like,
it's like, I promised.
I promised. And that's his thing. But I like that he's not even like, I don't know if this is intentional. It's probably, I don't know. Well, some of this is, but I love that he's like, his job is communication. And throughout the whole movie, he's just communicating with people. He's like talking to people. He's interacting, like just having these great human emotional moments with people, and that was like his job that was him as a soldier, was him as a radio operator, right? Like a guy who's communicating with people.
Oh, I love that reading. That's so astute. I really like that.
I don't know if that's intentional, but it's just a beautiful little bit of like all he does is communicate. That's his whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyways,
yeah.
But I love, he's just a kid. He's like 19. You get this scene of him doing something heroic, kind of accidentally.
Yeah.
Him being chased down by the tanks, which again, just like, you just imagine cackling Germans in there, just like, we're going to run this kid down because we're just fucking evil people.
Yeah, and we have been encouraged by our regime to believe that these people are Untermensch and subhumans, and therefore like being ridiculously cruel is actually a virtue in our twisted system. But that's the thing about the film, is that we never see any Germans. I don't think we just see the tanks, and then we see the effects of like air raids. But I don't think we see like an enemy infantryman. So they're always like a distant, menacing presence. And so any kind of like implied the evil of the regime that they're fighting is all kind of like, they just take it as read that that, and right. It isn't kind of like cackling Gestapo men and swastikas. It's like it's kind of like you have to think about it in the sense of like, you know, why do these tanks not just like blow this kid away? Why are they just chasing him and doing it this stupid way? It's because yeah.
I mean, it is cinematic. Like, I don't know, like because his boss, the lieutenant or whoever's with him, gets machine gunned.
Yeah,
and you're like, why didn't they just machine gun this kid?
Right, because they clearly can. They just did it.
Yeah. And it does seem like he's just like running away from these tanks, which feels like for miles. He's just like running and running. And there's some great shots. There's this great inverted shot that they do.
Oh yeah, it just flips over, and it's just really disorientating and just like conveys how you imagine it might be to be running for your life from like a machine that is going to kill you. And I love that like there is music as the running commences, but just before it's really quite quiet, and you just get the foley of the tank tracks as they're coming for him, and it's just such a just really, again, really concise, but just conveys like the horror of being in this situation and why he is scared. And when he's having this the very quick chat with the general, he says, it's translated in the subtitles as "I was a coward." It's like literally a Russian verb, like "Я трусил," like I cowarded. It's just like, and the general has this lovely reaction. He says like, I wish everyone else could like coward like that.
Yeah, it was just, you were so afraid you destroyed 2 tanks. I wish everybody was so afraid. You know, it's like but it is great. It's such a sweet thing where he comes. So this is one of the funniest bits of it. Is he comes in and he stands before the general. They call him in. You know, he comes into this foxhole trench, and he stands up to salute the general, and he just like stands up and bumps his head on the ceiling. Which is just it's such a delightfully little human moment, and just like such a cute little, like him being nervous in front of the general, and it conveys like there's no wasted, like this is 88 minutes. It's all like perfect. Like everything is just like you're seeing everything, and
he bumps his head again on the way out. It's funny. I noticed the second bump like both times, but the first time I missed the first one. Yeah. So I just the second watch I noticed that like little bookend, and it's just like he's a gangly 19-year-old. He's probably, there's a good chance he's still growing into his body. He's like a bit socially awkward. And it's just conveying so much with just like body language. And then in terms of the non-verbal communication, we also learn about the general. He has a bandage around his head, so that communicates this is not a guy who's leading from way back behind the line. Right. He somehow, I mean, we assume he didn't just like drop a like a saucepan on his head. He
also hit his head on the ceiling is very low. They hit your head. I did that the other day actually. That's what happened. But no, he's injured. I didn't pick up on that. Yeah, he's like, you know, you can tell fighting's rough. Things are rough here. You know. He asked for some time off, and he says, you know, I would only ask for time off because it was like because we're resting right now, so if I can have a little time off, you know. So he's not going to like abandon his fellow soldiers and whatnot. But yeah, and you do see the general. I don't know, just moments, you know, it's just this whole thing of just like moments of humanity. It's not a war film in a conventional sense where like people are achieving some kind of military goal or anything. And it's one of the things I love about I don't know. One of the things I find interesting about World War II cinema is it's such a broad, it was such a sweeping conflict and touched so many countries and so many individuals. And then it also came at this point of like the golden age of cinema. And there were a lot of people who had been there who were processing it. You know, it wasn't a war of professional soldiers. There was basically everybody was like millions of able-bodied men were drafted into the war. So you have an interesting cross-section of humanity. It touched a lot of civilian people. There's such a breadth of stories that can be told about World War II, which are still being told. Like, Zone of Interest just came out, Lee just came out. There's all these stories that still like a well that people go back to. And so there's no like one World War II film. Like with World War One, I feel like they're always just like the horror of the trenches, that kind of thing. But like, World War, I don't know. So this is just a very different than like a conventional war film. It is very much about this human experience. Has nothing to do with, and I was, the thing I was struck by this time, is that there's no, except for that one tank thing, everything seems very locked down, and it's all about close-ups. It's all about small interactions with humanity. There's never any big sweeping images. There's no like grand scale to this. It's all very human scaled. It's all very like the close-ups in this movie are just next level stuff, and just the faces and the emotions that are conveying from everybody is what is just really what makes it so powerful, and it's like such an amazing strength of it. Anyways, I forget what my original point was, but
no, it's all good. And Chukhrai himself was a veteran, and I think that lends it authenticity of like it's lived in, and it's not like rah rah wave the flag. There's some maybe subtle stuff around that which we can talk about, but it does not feel like a propaganda film. It feels like just a dealing with what people who were our age at the time, like if they survived the war, this is like recent memory. I mean, this is because this is 60 59. It's like the war only ended 15 years back, so
right. So it's still it's all still very recent stuff. And for a country that experienced the war directly, as opposed to like the UK did to some extent, but like America, we never had Axis troops
on the ground. We had cities leveled.
I mean, there are shots as they go through, they're just bombed out. You do see some countryside that's just bombed out, destroyed. There's craters. There's people working on a railroad just randomly. Like that, at one point he stops and listens to a message. And anyways, he leaves. Let's see, what are we talking about? Do we go through this? Do we want to go through this?
I mean, we can jump around. I wondered whether a good question to ask would be, like, we talked about how it's not really a conventional war film. Like, what would we even say the genre of this film is? Because I would say it's basically like a tragicomedy.
Yeah, I mean it is. Yeah, I mean it's kind of it's such a it's almost slice of life, but it's such an extreme. It's not quite slice of life, because then that's like implies that this is not his day-to-day life. It's this extraordinary. It's like, I don't know. It's just an extraordinary journey that this guy goes on. It's in some ways it's like a picaresque tale of like he goes, because he picks up people along the way. He has these interactions. There's these sketches of humanity. So he like the first guy he meets. I'd completely forgotten about this since the last time I'd seen it. But the first guy he meets is this this soldier who's going back from the war. He's lost a leg.
Yeah, he's probably what, like mid 30s.
That's what I would
maybe?
guess.
Yeah. And that was something that struck me watching it the second time. Is like the first time I didn't. Obviously, you notice the crutches, but I didn't notice that. And this may just be my observational skills. Is that I didn't notice that he was on crutches because he'd lost his leg, because it's not drawn attention to when we first meet him, and then like later on as they're parting, it's much more like stark. And this older soldier who has seen more of life, like the big drama there is that he doesn't know. He's seriously considering like just disappearing and never seeing his wife again.
Yeah.
And like Alyosha says to this guy, like, where are you going to go? And his response is like, Russia's big. Which, you know, true statement.
Yeah, I mean, it's not untrue, but it's like, yeah, it is kind of a funny thing to say. But yeah, this guy who's just like so, I don't know. Yeah, he's so like, he's clearly traumatized by the war. He thinks he can't go back. He thinks his wife's not going to accept him. Basically, he says like, "Oh, my wife is. I was always jealous and whatever." He's trying to make excuses about the relationship. It seems like he's basically like, "I don't know how to deal with myself, and I don't know. I don't want her to. I don't want to be like a burden to her or whatever."
Yeah, and that's all. As you say, it's all subtext, but it's just so beautifully done.
And yeah. No, it's great. And he's trying to send her a telegram. He misses. This is where he misses his first train. He's just trying to help this guy out. He misses his first train. He's going to write this telegram to his wife, and he's telling Alexei about it. The telegram lady overhears, and you see her, you know, call him a coward. You know, it's like, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, that changes his mind more than Alexei does. And you see in her face just... she's got somebody out there. It's never said, but you just know it. Like, she's got somebody out there, somebody she's waiting for, somebody she would give anything to come back in any state. Like, and she's like, and you're just walking away from this, and you're
basically, you know, how dare you?
Yeah, and that's a great little moment. This person we see for one scene, like, she's got 1 minute of dialogue maybe, and like, it's such a powerful that you get everything from it. And again, this is just like I said, like the close-up, every close-up of him, you're just like, this is a guy, he's seen life. He's a handsome guy. He's seen life. It's like, and
there's a reason he is in movies.
No, for sure. Yeah. He's got real movie star look. Like, you've seen like,
it's sort of like I mean, he's better looking than Humphrey Bogart, but it's that kind of like,
right. It's kind of,
like ruggedly masculine face.
Yeah, like George Clooney, or what's the guy, Josh Brolin or something like that. Like, he's very handsome man, 30 years old, 35 years old or whatever. Yeah. And, you know, and then they have this, Alexei goes with him to the train. He misses another train because he just waits for him on the platform because his wife he's waiting for his wife. And, there's, you know, it seems like the wife's not going to show up. Like, maybe the wife has abandoned him. And then she shows up because the buses weren't running, like, whatever, just normal life stuff. You know, the buses weren't running or something.
Yeah. Well, World War II is pretty disruptive.
Yeah, exactly. And then you see this beautiful moment of like, she is just so happy that he's back. None of that mattered. Everything, all that shit was in his head, you know. And and it's just great. And then and then Alexei has to run. He has to go and get the train. And the guy, it is nice that they stay with that moment of the couple. As soon as she shows up, Alexei's gone. He's like, I got other stuff I need to be doing.
It's like, he's okay for him now, but I've made sure that he stuck around, for this reunion.
And he's And I think maybe he just doesn't want to be like, this is their moment. I don't need to be here for this.
He kind of, he kind of skips off in his big long strides.
But I mean that it's great, and we stick with them. We see them walk off. I mean, you get a moment of them together, which is, you know, maybe something that wouldn't. I don't know. At some point, like, Alexei's kind of like. I mean, he's such a nice guy. He's a bit of a cipher. You more see the world through his eyes. You see him kind of going along. He's like moving along on this path. But it's more about the people that he meets at some point, you know, and he is.
Yeah, it's the friends we made along the way, to use that really hackneyed phrase. But it's that, but like done in the best way.
Yeah. And then after that, he gets in a boxcar. Oh, he meets this. Oh God, they get in the boxcar. This is the strategic hay you were talking about.
Strategic hay.
Where he meets this like smarmy guard who.
Oh, he's just the worst. It's like a little pen portrait of just like not like capital E evil, but like lowercase, just being a terrible person, just a job's worth.
Yeah.
And,
He's just a cowardly little bully. And
he's like Captain Darling from Blackadder. He's just like he's drunk on this tiny little bit of power that he has.
Exactly,
and, yeah.
And he makes him bribe him to get in the boxcar and with his tales of the lieutenant who's such a beast. You know, it's like, oh, if you get caught.
Yeah.
Which is, oh my God, which is the best, which again is a really great payoff. Where they keep building up like how terrible this lieutenant is, how horrible he is. And then when you finally meet him, he's like, oh, no, you're all right. He's like, I'm fine. And then he finds out that he was bribed and he makes him give the bribe back. It's just.
He gets his comeuppance, which is nice because we do get a little moment of this Jobsworth horrible guard like gobbling down his ill-gotten beef ration.
Oh yeah.
And it's just the film just a little like rubbing it in that there's like this guy is terrible. Don't be like this guy. Be like Alyosha.
Like this guy sucks. He's eating disgusting beef out of a can like a monster. Like
that he does not need, and this guy who's on the road does need. He's the worst. I mean, in the context of a war where the enemy are the Nazis, you know, he's not that bad, but he's a relatable scumbag, and this is one of the things that makes this film feel so real is that we get people just being like, you have a character who is like a low level bit of a scumbag. And the film isn't like pretending, oh yeah, such people don't exist in our wonderful communist utopia. It's like, no, people are still people, and they're a real mixed bag.
I mean, this guy, he's totally relatable. He's the kind of like petty little tyrant that you find at like any job you'll find.
Yes.
You know, like everybody's had to deal with that, or like, you know, when you're interacting with like customer service or like somebody at a place of business or whatever, you just have to deal with these people. Like, and you're right. He's gone mad with the incredibly small amount of power that he has. And instead of like helping out Alexei, he's trying to manipulate. Anyways, but this is where we meet. Is it Shura?
Yes. So, again, fun with Russian diminutives. Because it's interesting, he introduced himself as Alexei. She introduced herself as Shura. Now, this is not obvious to non-Russophone, culture-immersed people. That is actually a shortened form of Alexandra.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Would not have
Which can also be abbreviated as Sasha, but she's Shura. And if you're an Alexander, then you can be a Shurik. So Shura for it's the feminine diminutive.
So they basically have the same name?
Similar names, though, because he's Alexei, she's Alexandra.
Right.
And so he's Alyosha and she's Shura. Russian, as I say, they're elaborate with their diminutives.
Okay.
So yes, and they have quite an introduction.
Oh,
tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, because he's in the boxcar, and then she gets on like the next stop, and he's hiding from her because he thinks she's the lieutenant. So but then when she gets in, he realizes, oh, it's this girl,
the beast.
And then she tries to jump out of a moving train car because she
not smart.
No, but like, I don't know. This time I hadn't really thought about this, but I'm just like, it's like, I can see that. I can see that she gets into a train car and there's a strange man in there. And she's like, jumping out on this bridge of a moving train car is maybe a better option.
Yeah. Well, that speaks to like Alyosha's naivety and just not knowing what the world is like for women. The fact that like, it seems like, if you put it without context, jumping out of a moving train, not very rational. However, lesser of two evils when you're just in a confined space with some like strange dude, and we see a couple of shots where the height difference is really stark. He's like probably
at least a foot on her.
a head and a half taller than her. So this is yeah. So her reaction is totally legit, totally reasonable.
Moving
but
across,
he is so baffled by it.
Yeah, it was like moving across like a war-torn country, in like non-traditional, like just like hopping boxcars. Yeah. Like she is 100% right in her like I'm just like, this is not. And I was like, the whole thing is like, I was like, as I was watching it, it's interesting you make a point about his naivete, because as I was watching it's like, why is he not diffusing the situation in a way that like he seems upset with her a bit?
Yeah, he's offended that she would be scared of him.
He's like, but I'm a good guy. And I was just like, he should be like, and he's not like giving her enough space. And I'm just like, is this movie? I think you're right. I think it's not the movie being sexist. I think it's explaining his naivety. It's showing us his naivete and not understanding like where this lady's headspace would be at trying to travel this way at this time period.
Yeah.
But it's great. She's they become friends. She tells him that she's visiting her fiance.
Which again might be like a sort of self-defense. It's like, I'm taken.
No, that's exactly what she's doing. And you know it's like, I think as a viewer, you know, like that's a lie. You're immediately clock it as like, that's not true. Like that's not what she's doing. She's like, she's just like, I have a fiance. He's a flyer and he's in a hospital. And you're like, that's not true.
It's like you might not respect me because society is horrible and sexist. But you'll respect this other guy that I'm with and leave me alone.
Yeah, I mean that's
but that's all subtext.
It's no, for sure.
So well done.
But you're like, but he's like, oh okay, and he seems to buy it. He seems to believe her. I think as an audience, I don't know if we're supposed to believe it or not. I don't know, but because it does seem like the kind of thing that she's just saying to get guys off her, and you're like, and you see that, and again you're like, that's just society, and you're like, yeah, okay,
yeah,
yeah, but yeah, they start to become friends, and he gives her something called Salo. What's Salo? Do you know this?
Yeah, so this. Somehow in my whole 5 years that I was living out in Russia, I don't think I ever had it, and it sounds so unappetizing.
Okay,
so
she seems. It's really funny. He's like, "Do you want some salad?" He's like, "Well, I'll have a bite," and then it's like, "I'll have a little piece or something," and then it cuts to her just like devouring this thing, like she clearly hasn't eaten in 2 days, and like
it is. I am told it is just something that is loved, but it is. Where did I write down the really unappetizing description? That's right. It's subcutaneous salted pig fat. I mean, I guess, yeah, way to sell it, Ali. But yeah, it's apparently like not a delicacy, because that implies like elitism, and like it's just like, I'm trying to think of
like comfort food,
exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like. The way, I mean, I don't particularly care for like mushy peas, but I know it's something that Americans are like, why do British people think that this is good? It's one of those, I think it's probably a bit of an acquired taste, and if you grew up with it, it's amazing. And if you didn't, it's just like, what is wrong with you people?
Yeah.
So yeah, salad, and that's a nice little cultural detail.
Okay, so I can see it's like, if it's like lard or like it's basically bacon, like liquefied bacon, I guess, and then just spread on bread, and then okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like if you like, it's not like this because it's fat, it's squishy, but like if you can see the appeal of like pork scratchings, this is pork scratchings adjacent. It's not good for you, but it tastes nice.
Okay, I just was curious what it was. I was just like, I don't know. I was gonna Google it, and then I was like, no, I'm just gonna get that movie, and I hate that movie.
Yeah, that is not one I have seen. Interestingly enough, though, Pasolini apparently coined for this. He described this film as neo-romantic. So there is a Pasolini connection with this film. But yes, this is good Salo, not like I have not seen that one. I don't know whether I can ever make myself watch it.
I'd skip it. I have a copy because it's part of the Criterion collection.
Right.
Sometimes I just would get things for cheap, and I just like would buy them just to. And I was like, I'll watch this, and I was just like, I don't want to watch this. I don't like this. I did. I made it to the end, but I did skip a big part. I did skip one chapter that was just like too gross.
Yeah, it's like I get it. Fascism bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I know fascism's bad. I don't need to see you abusing teenagers to make this point. Like I knew that going in, so thank you for nothing. Like, this feels like this is 100%. And having seen other Pasolini, I was just like, oh, this is just this dude's. That's just that dude and his things that he likes and wants to do. And I was just like, and some people are really into that. I had a friend who was just I knew a guy. Who said he watches? I was like, I knew he liked Salo, and I was like, oh, I watched Salo. I was like, what's the deal? He's like, oh, I love it. It's great. I watch it every year. And I was like, you watched it more than once, let alone every year. I was just like, anyways, forget it. All right.
That's a film.
But yeah, but a much better film. But yeah, I just was curious about that because he handed her this thing, and I was just like, they were making kind of a big deal about it, and I was like, wonder what this is. But yeah, they eventually kind of like become very close, kind of fall in love. That becomes like the main center of the movie. Like that's the middle bit is them traveling together. And at some point they get separated. And he manages to catch up with her. He has this short,
it's kind of like daydream kind of like sequence, isn't it? Him kind of like imagining. But it's like a combination of memories and like the interaction he wished he'd had.
Yeah. Well, that's at the end, but like in the middle they get separated.
Yeah.
And then he ends up in this like car with this woman who says she hasn't slept in 2 days.
Oh yeah. The truck driver who says like this truck is as old as I am, and she's like clearly like yeah.
And I was like 25. You look like maybe you've done some hard living. I don't know. I think it's implied that she's like 50, or it's like a 50-year-old chick or something like that.
Yeah.
But
mid 20th century living, especially the Soviet Union.
Yeah. This movie has two of the tropes in old movies that I find, I don't know, like that. Yeah, I always see it, and I always find them very surprising. One is like people just getting soaking wet.
Oh,
and then just like never acknowledging it. The fact that they're, because like I was like, because at one point he's pushing this truck. It happens early in the movie too, where he's pushing a Jeep, and they're just like out of mud and river. And I'm just like, how is not the rest of the movie being like, I feel horrible because I'm just been damp. I'm never going to be dry again. I'm covered in mud. But that, I feel like that always happens in movies. People just get soaking wet in their clothes and then they just move on. I just never acknowledged again.
Yeah, he's also 19 and probably doesn't feel the cold in his bones.
The other thing this thing has that I see in movies, this is like only a movie, is just like people sleeping in hay. Like it's the most comfortable experience in their entire life. I've never slept in hay. I don't know. Just like I don't know. It doesn't. Is it? I don't know. Maybe it is comfy, but it always seems like people are having the best sleep in the world when they sleep in hay.
I do not know that it would be preferable to like. It seems like it'd be marginally preferable to sleeping on concrete or just like an absolutely solid floor, just having some cushion. But I feel like the scratchiness is, yeah.
Anyways, but
yeah, and even like the scummy guard comments on it. It's like you've got a young woman, you've got some hair, you're set up, man.
Yeah,
and it's just like, don't be a douchebag.
He's the
worst.
Such a gross guy. But again, I guess he's come up, and so that's a good funny part too, where you Anyways, but like you meet this truck driver. They get back together. I love the scene where he's searching frantically this train yard for his train and for her, and then he's like given up, and then she kind of emerges on this bridge above him, and like the train goes by, and the smoke goes up, and then she's on this train bridge. She like emerges from the smoke, and it's just like so beautifully shot, and like such a great bit of cinematography. So it's like he's looking for her. He's in the foreground, just frantic looking around. She emerges from this smoke above him, and then they run up the stairs and they embrace, and it's just like the whole thing is just like perfect. It is extremely romantic. It is, yeah, it's great for a movie that is very. I mean, it's very chaste. They never kiss. They never, you know, but
they have one moment where they're hiding from the Beast lieutenant, where they're like
snuggling.
not out of necessity. It's kind of a sardine situation, and you know there is a point where he's like, you can see that he wants to pursue a relationship, and she's not sure about it. So he does like take the hint and back off. But that's he's just like, to use the like really cliched term, like he's a gentleman about like the difference in where their feelings are at that moment. And I love the fact that they have they do When Harry Met Sally, like 30 or whatever number of years, because they have the conversation of like,
can men and women
be friends, or does love and all that stuff get in the way? So so that made me smile, because I was just like, no, that film did not invent that. I'm sure it didn't. I don't know.
No,
Rob Reiner, I'm sure, has watched lots of films, so maybe he has seen this. But I'm not saying he plagiarized it from this.
no, I'm sure he didn't. But like, I think it's a common human experience, right? Again, this is another thing, coming through. Oh wait, here's the thing that maybe you would understand. Like, in the essay, it mentions that she is Ukrainian, which you would know. It's never mentioned explicitly, but I guess her accent is Ukrainian.
So, well, this is good, because I wanted to talk about Ukraine-related stuff.
Because you meet some Ukrainian refugees.
We do
near the end of the movie too, like another group.
Yeah. So the thing about it is the actors, who plays Shura, her surname is Prokhorenko, and any surname with like the suffix enko, that's like a dead like giveaway that your family, either you are Ukrainian or your family was from there, because there are lots of people who are like multi-generational like Russian citizens who are like some iteration of Enkos, but that is, it's just a very stereotypical Ukrainian surname.
Oh, okay.
So with that, I didn't pick up an accent at all with her, but I think it's more the fact that they cast someone who was either from there or had that heritage. But I'm really glad that we are talking about Ukraine in the context of this conversation. We're recording this in 2025, so there's like a deep, bitter irony to this story, because it's so incredibly humane, and it's just like I would like quite like to like Clockwork Orange style. I have not actually seen that movie, but the bit where Alex is strapped to a chair and made to watch stuff, I feel like the people running Russia could have, if they have seen this film, they have not taken the message of it on board, that war is horrible, and sometimes you need to do it because the opposition are actual Nazis, not people who you like to call Nazis. Anyway, it's just I like, there's some kind of biographical stuff with Grigori Chukhrai, which like I don't want to say like fully explains his thoroughly decent dealing with like the Ukrainian side of things, and the fact that we have this like cameo of a Ukrainian family in there. I mean, he himself, he was born in Melitopol, which is in Ukraine. It's currently one of the places occupied by the Russian military. So that gives this a just sad, depressing aspect to it. So and he in terms of like coming up in his film career, he worked at the Dovzhenko studio in Ukraine before working for Mosfilm. So yeah, so he was someone who traveled between the two countries when they were both part of the Soviet Union, and so he's I don't know whether what he would have identified as. I mean, the film, it's all Russian language, and the Ukrainians we meet are speaking Russian. There is like a hint of a Ukrainian accent if you know what you're looking for. But yeah, that's really it. And this I was listening out for listening out for this really carefully this second time around. This gets into like language matters, and it feels like if you're not close to this, it feels like pedantry. But there's like I was listening out for whether they use the prepositions in Russian that imply that Ukraine is a country, or whether it's the ones that imply that it's a province of Russia. And in this one, they used the correct one, i.e., the one that recognizes that it's its own country. This has an analog in English. Is that now people are quite rightly discouraged from calling it the Ukraine, and the correct usage is Ukraine. Friends don't like friends call it the Ukraine.
I didn't realize that was offensive, because I sometimes will still call it the Ukraine. I don't know why, because I think that's what I grew up in the 80s.
Well, yeah, that's what I grew up saying, because it was just convention, and that was basically how that had come into English, was this like weird nuance of usage, but it does reflect a usage in Russian that implies that it's not its own place.
I can see that. I have to be mindful of that in the future. Yeah, not to accidentally do that again. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's like, unless you're close to it, like if I use it, I have no excuse, because like, this is a special interest. But yeah, certainly like I've literally like written to news outlets saying like, please correct your guests when they use this, because they're not doing it on purpose, but it matters, because it's a real separate country, and that is an important thing to be stressed.
I find it. I think I do it because I just love it when place names have "the" in front of them, like The Hague, or there was a town in. I went to this town in Oregon called the Dalles. The Dalles.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, but I just kind of find it funny when places have "the" in the name, and so I think that's why I've held on to the Ukraine. But I understand.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like the United States and the UK, they're fine, but this just has this little like attachment with something that's not good. In fact, I have a collection of short stories on my bookshelf that I'm digging into, that is by a Ukrainian author, and he's given it in English, the ironic title to it is The Ukraine, because he's just sort of like sending up like some of the like more like sort of day-to-day realities of like a place not being like an idyll, and he's kind of using that sort of that usage to kind of represent the fact that it's its own real separate different country, but it's still people are people there too, you know? It's not paragons of virtue walking around, just like any country. But yeah, so that's my Ukrainian digression. I thought it was important to bring that in with the context in which that we're recording.
I think
tragically.
Like I've watched this film several times. I don't think I've watched it in years. I haven't watched it since the invasion. So it's the first time I watched it since the invasion of Ukraine. And so just like any mention of Ukraine, just kind of is just like a I don't know, just it's like a pluck of it's just like a discordant note. You're just like, oh, just thinking on that, reflecting on that tragedy.
It's like that stands out in a way that it wouldn't have done before 2014, and certainly before 2022. And it does make the bookends kind of ring. It gives them like a sort of an uncomfortable like irony, because one of the things I noticed with that is that they say Ruski soldat, Russian soldier, rather than Sovietsky soldat, and it's kind of like, if this was a more like on the nose ideological film, you'd surely go with Sovietsky, because that's the all encompassing and the ideological term. But no, they go with Ruski, and in the intro they talk about how Alyosha is buried in a town with a foreign name, and strangers like put flowers on his grave, and they see him as like a hero and a liberator, and it's like that now rings like with like a real tragic, like it's like, I'm not sure how this would have been received in like Poland or Lithuania or Latvia. It's like, yeah, you liberated us in the sense of like you kicked the Nazis out, and if my country is going to be run by the Soviets or the Nazis, I'll there's a lesser of two evils dynamic going on, especially
it's a real race to the bottom
once Stalin,
at the same time.
once Stalin has popped his clogs as well, that does make a difference. But it's it's like, I don't know how true this ever rang, but the fact that now the country is effectively like full fascist, it feels so depressing.
No, I mean, it is weird because it's just like, it feels like it's flipped. It's like now the Russians are the cackling cartoons of like evil in the tank trying to run down innocent men, and it's like, now it's like it's completely
just giving into all of their worst authoritarian instincts.
And it is funny. You're right. We were talking about how it doesn't feel like propaganda explicitly, but then when they do that intro and they're like, he's just remembered as a liberator, and I was just like, is he though? Is he buried like somewhere in Poland in 1950? They feel really great about, like, does that feel like liberation to them, or wherever he is, wherever the front line was? Because again, it's very vague where the front line is, but where exactly where he is fighting. I think it's implied. I thought it was implied that he. Well, I don't know. It's, again, the geography is unimportant, but I thought it seemed like he never left Russia. Like it seemed like he was still in Russia, but then it does say that he dies. Yeah. But then, of course, we don't know when he.
Well, exactly, yeah, because he could have made it all the way. He could have survived all the way to 1945 and been one of the guys who was like, just killed in the taking of
Berlin
of Berlin, because that regime did not, and this is why one of the reasons, because the big reason is that the Nazis treated it as a war of extermination. It's just like, no, we're just like murdering everybody on the Eastern Front in a way that they weren't on the Western Front. But also the fact that the Stalinist regime saw human life as pretty cheap. So if you need to clear a minefield, you were just sending guys through it. We're on a clock here. We're trying to take as much as Eastern Europe and Central Europe before the Brits and the Americans and all of the Western allies. This is a race to see. Yeah, whereas our country's governments, for all their faults, they had learnt the lessons of World War I. If you don't, people are going to get killed, but you do have to, like, not just throw lives at it.
You can't just make it a meat grinder. You can't just throw. No, you can't just keep throwing men at each other until you run out of men. And the first one to run out of men wins, right? Or loses.
Yeah, it's like, oh, great. Yeah. Well, this is why we devised the term Pyrrhic victory.
And so, Okay, yeah, so that's a good point. He could have made it all the way. I mean, you don't, because there's so many details that they don't.
You never
fill
know.
in. Yeah, he could be buried in East Germany or whatever. Then East Germany, but again, yeah, it's just like I don't know how much the people of East Germany felt that the Russians were liberators. Like any of these countries. So like that is the one bit of propaganda that they throw in there. It's just like, well, of course, there's this everything that he did was, and everything that the Russian army did was noble and great. And there's no reason to even think twice about that,
Just don't talk to anyone who lived through it, and then we'll all be fine.
But I mean, it's like, the American army does that, or the American mythos of any war. Of the UK is the same way. Like, of course, what we did was great.
Oh, likewise.
And we won't focus on like war crimes, the horrible things that were done. This and XXYZ, that.
Right. Like, we didn't need to flatten Dresden.
Right.
It wasn't strategically military important. It's just we were really angry at that point and felt they deserved some payback. And
that kind of stuff.
Certainly the regime did. But like not all of those civilians who you're just like carpet bombing. Right. It's just like. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
War is hell.
It is really.
There is a reason that is a phrase.
I mean, I don't know. Well, we can talk about this now. There's some things I want to talk about in the middle, but like the ending where it talks about how, this kid could have been anything, and you fall in love with this kid as you go through, and you're just like, this guy, he's a really nice guy. He's sweet. He's trying to be helpful. Everything he does is trying to be helpful to people. And you're just like, 1,000 kids like this, thousands of kids like this, 19-year-olds, just starting out their lives, don't want to hurt anybody. It's just gone for nothing. And all they are, in the end, and it talks about like all this kid is a soldier, because that's all he ever got to do with his life, because he got trapped up in this like system that sucked, and because it all sucked. Like there were these people, they were being invaded. There was justification for this, fight. And you think about that, the hundreds of the millions of kids before and since who just, and the people who are dying in Ukraine now who just, they don't want any of this. They just wanted to live their lives, They wanted to hang out with their friends and meet girls and, hug their mom and shit. And they lose all of this because somebody decided that they wanted what was theirs. And
and Lebensraum and like all of that despicable garbage. I mean this film is almost like to the level like irony on irony, like the supposed thing that Joseph Stalin said about like one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic. This is an exploration of that. I'm sure this was not in the minds of the screenwriters, but it is kind of like an exploration of that idea. It's like, just take this like senseless waste of life and then just multiply it by multiple millions and you've got World War II.
See, and that's the thing is, in the beginning it draws your attention to the graveyard. Like it says in that opening text, it talks about how he's in this grave, an unmarked grave, or he's in a grave in a random town far from where he lives. And you think about those military graves, graveyards. I happened to see one when I was in America. That was just like, it's just like row and row of white crosses.
Yeah, I watched Saving Private Ryan beginning to end for the first time very recently, kind of like because I knew I was going to be watching this, and also because it was on iPlayer, and I thought I need to watch it. And and there's just like when you see that scene of, I mean, the bookends of that film. This is an object lesson of how to do bookends, because they are too sentimental in that film.
It's a bit much
for my taste. It is a bit much, but just seeing all those rows of graves, and it's just like, we do that on the Western front, and the fact it's great that you do have the individual markers for each person. They don't have that in the East because you would just be taking up so much land.
Right.
But maybe they should.
But I think that the problem with that, they tell us about the graveyard, they tell us about the grave, but you never see the graveyard. And I think that when you see a graveyard like that, it's overwhelming. And there's a great moment in Harold and Maude.
I've never seen it, but I really want to
It's
see
great.
it.
It's in the Criterion Collection.
Oh yeah, I figured it had to be.
Well, there's a great moment, just kind of throw it, where they talk about flowers like this. Anyways, and they show you a graveyard, and you think about the graveyards, and they're just rows and rows of unique, not unique, but uniform crosses. And that is overwhelming, and that is too much to think about. It's too much to think about. Every one of these crosses has an individual underneath it, because what you see on the surface is just the same object over and over and over again. And and I think that becomes dehumanizing. That becomes impossible to comprehend. And then for us to say, here is this guy. You're right. It is making that, tragedy of one dead man, one dead boy, really. And and you need every moment of that, because then the hug is so powerful. Then the fact that he's dead is so powerful, because you've come to know this kid, and you know that there's no reason he should be dead. There's no just world that exists where this kid is dead at 19 because of this bullshit. It's like, and that's you can apply that to any war. Ukraine is a great example. Like, there's no reason anybody in Ukraine should have died for this bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's just greed and evil and whatever. And it's just, it takes what is the incomprehensible, like, deaths of millions, and shows you one kid, and you see, I don't know. Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so powerful. It's just everything about it. Every moment you're with him, every close up of him, every close up of everybody he interacts with, just their faces. You are forced to reckon with everyone's humanity in this terrible situation. And like, going backwards to where we were kind of in the synopsis, like where he delivers the soap to the wife. That's the one point where I don't like the character. Do you know?
Yeah, because he's quite judgy.
He's super judgy, right? And which, in retrospect, I've never liked that. It's always a part that I really remembered from the movie, and it just, in this time watching through, I was like, what a shit! What a little shit this kid is. He's coming into this lady. This lady is like, I don't know what her life is, but she's clearly like just trying to survive. Like, her house is gone. She's trying to survive. She's doing this thing, and it's and he's coming in, and he's super judgy, and I really dislike him in that moment. It feels true to the character.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's great, because going back to the, like, he is a really great kid, but he is not perfect.
Oh, no.
And so giving him that being, like, because that's the flip side of his virtue, like, to use a grand word, is that he lacks life experience, and he lacks imagination. You feel like if it was the veteran who we met earlier in that situation, meeting that woman, he would not have that level. I doubt he would have that level of judgment, because he's been around the block.
Yeah, I mean, he's like this,
been around the sun a lot more times, and has met people, and
it's like this lady lives in a war zone. She doesn't know if her husband's coming home. She doesn't know, like, she has no.
We know nothing about that relationship. Maybe he was terrible. Maybe he wasn't that. Yeah, maybe they didn't have a good relationship. We don't know.
Yeah, because
and Alyosha certainly doesn't know.
That's funny, because he's just he makes up all these things, because when he finally does meet the father, he takes the soap to the father, and he's just telling him all these great things about his son, who he has literally met for 30 seconds, and we'll probably never see again, and so all we know about him is his lies, and then the dad's like, that sounds like my son, and I'm just like, yeah, who wouldn't say, because it's all these glowing, lovely things about his son. But yeah, like, I think that her life is clearly very difficult. Her husband's at the front line, but she's also in the middle of a war zone, and she's also struggling to survive. And she's, and for him to come in there and be like, I'm sure she clearly doesn't feel great about her life choices.
No,
and then for him to just come in and be like a real shit to her is just like, I'm just like, this time I was just like, oh, fuck you, kid. Just get it. It's like, I'm just like, shut up. And but then he goes and sees the father. The other thing I love is that he has the little kid. He picks up this little kid is his guide. And you see this little kid and he runs into another little kid and they're blowing bubbles. Oh yeah. Which I love. I'm just like, it's...
And that little kid yells at Cher like, "Don't touch my bubbles!"
Yeah. Oh man,
that's such kid behavior.
I was like, I love this from top to bottom. I'm just like, oh, I love this so much. This is such a great little. No need to be there. It's so good.
Yeah.
And then you see the kid like take him to the apartment, and then it kind of lingers on the kid blowing bubbles, and the other kid comes back, and just like they're just gonna play together because they're two kids, and I love it. I recently. God, Christ, where was I? Somewhere in London. I was at some museum recently, and it had an exhibit on play, and on kids playing, and it had video footage of kids playing all over the world, different kid games, some of which were familiar to anybody, like tag or skipping rope or something, and some which were very regional. Sure. And one of the ones they had was like kids playing in a refugee camp. And kids playing in Ukraine. And I found them very depressing. And then my wife was like, well, it's nice that, even there's terrible things going on, kids still play and kids are still kids. And that, I don't know, that was beautiful. But also like seeing the generations of like these little kids, these teenagers who think they're adults, but are still kids, these adults who are trying to navigate, being alive, and then they go to meet the old man and the elderly man, and you just all that in one scene, just getting all those generations of people trying to survive, trying to live lives, and I don't know, like that whole sequence is amazing. It's my least favorite moment with the character.
Yeah, but you wouldn't lose it for a second because it just adds like that extra dimension and a nuance and depth to it. And I wanted to add here that I love the fact that the choice of that address, the address of the place that is bombed out, is Chekhov Street, and not like, it's not Lenin Street, it's not like God forbid, Dzerzhinsky Street. Right. Like, it's not some name connected with the revolution. It's connected with this writer who was like such an observer of human foibles and frailties, and just clearly loved people in all of their like non-idealness. Yeah. And so I love the film that, it's kind of like a little of a reach for the film. It's like yeah, it's kind of like, it's a signal of what they value and what they want. I mean, it's bold to make that. It's just like, hey, we're making a Chekhovian film. Yeah. Sure. Mm-hmm. But I feel like, reach for you've reached for it and you've done it.
I guess that is I didn't clock that. I was when they said it, I was like, oh, from Star Trek. I was like, I didn't make that, but you're right. It is nicer than if it was just like Lenin Square or whatever. Like,
yeah, someone connected with the
like Trotsky Road or whatever. Yeah, it's like it's.
It's not going to be Trotsky. Yeah, the Thor may have happened. It's not It's not thought that much. He's He's
but like but like not because it could have been just anything, and like that's a nice little Easter egg of like this is where our heart is. For those who know, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, I did not want to leave that one unsaid, as that was something I noticed the first time round, but I didn't really think about it. So I like that as a nod, and just to talk about other films that we've talked about on this show, it reminds me of another film from just like a few years after this, Welcome or No Trespassing, that has a character who loves Chekhov, and he if you want a signal like, I like people, even though I realize that people are distinctly not great some of the time. That is effective shorthand, is expressing admiration for Chekhov.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it's good, and you're right. Like I don't know. Yeah,
because he has a reputation of depressing. It's like in the West, and it's like that is true, but that is only half the story. He is also just like extremely good observer of people being ridiculous. Like it's kind of like Jane Austen level of people being silly and like laughable.
Yeah. And I guess it's good that it comes at the point where you see the character be his most ridiculous, his most flawed.
Yeah.
Where you see him.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm glad that is this my read of it? Am I just like being, or is, because I don't think the movie is necessarily judging this lady as much as he is.
No, I would agree with that read, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, but after that they get on another train. This next bit where they get on the train, there's two more things I wanted to talk about. Sorry, I know we've been going on for a long time. One of them is just a shot. There is, at one point they get on a train, he has to like sneak her on a train dressed in his uniform.
Oh yeah.
And they're
giant greatcoat, because he, as we've discussed, is quite a bit taller.
She's like the foot tall.
And she looks so cute.
Oh my god! I was just like, oh my god, you couldn't be more gorgeous right now. Like she's radiant. She's beautiful the whole time. I mean, she's great though. I mean, she's not just beautiful, but she's like, it is like movie star, like every moment she just looks so perfect. And she looks so adorable in the little coat and the coat. And she looks so, and when he's putting it on her, she just seems so pleased to be dressing up. Like she just like, it's such a teenager thing to do. It's just like, oh, I'm a soldier. And she just seems like so delighted that he's putting her coat on her and doing this little thing. And, but there's a shot where they're standing between train cars on the coupler because the train is completely full, and they're standing close together and they're trying to talk, but you can't hear what they're saying because of the train sound. And like the light is behind them and the sun is setting, and her hair is, because she has like the most hair in the world. Because I don't know if you clock this, but her braid goes down below her waist. Like she's like a mile of hair.
So long. Yeah. And there's a reason that isn't a braid the whole time, because having that just flowing loose is not practical.
But there's a shot where they're standing there, the sun is behind them, the train is blowing her hair, and like little strands of her hair are like touching his face, and it just like, it's this beautiful moment of connection and just them falling in love, and like them, or like not even falling in love, but just like having this connection, and it's just beautiful, and just like this subtle bit of just like the subtle touching of her hair whipping around and kind of enveloping his face as well. It's just like, I was just like, oh my god, this is such a gorgeous shot. I just was like, I've never seen anything quite like it, and I was just like, I was so pleased with it. I thought it was so beautiful.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you mentioned it, and I am going to name check the two cinematographers, because I feel like you have made the case for them deserving to be name checked. So they are Vladimir Nikolaev and Yera Savolyeva. So.
Were you saying that they did Letter Never Sent? Because Letter Never Sent has some amazing cinematography in it as well.
They didn't, but Chukhrai did work with that cinematographer.
Okay.
So I love the fact that you've got two cinematographers on this, and you've got a man and a woman. So that, which like mirrors the our central couple, and there are couples in this film, because you have so many couples. Okay, maybe not that many, but quite a few. But they're kind of reflections of each other, because you've obviously got like the
injured veteran,
like, amputee vet, and his partner, and then you've got Alyosha and Shura, and then we've got like the couple separated by the war, and then we've got like the implied couple of Alyosha's mother and father, and there's just that really poignant line at the end where she says, "I'll wait for you. I didn't wait for your father, but I'll wait for you." And that's just like, that's just such an enigmatic line, because like if you count 20 or so years back, we're in the Civil War and the revolutionary like explosion of the country. So there's a degree of like, as a bunch of countries, we have been through it in this couple of generations. and that's just all packed in that. And we don't. Who knows what the story is? But it implies so much in that just one line.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought, because the thing is, I missed that in previous viewing. I never really clocked that, and then this time I was like, yeah, where's that dad? Like, because it implies he's only got his mom. His mom's only got they only have each other, and then when she said it, I was like, wait, did he also die in this war? But I had completely forgotten. Like, oh, he could have died in the revolution. He could have.
Yeah, who knows?
It implies that he went somewhere.
Been...
And there's a great moment in Dr. Zhivago where I forget what the guy who's not there's a love triangle between Zhivago and this woman and this other guy, and the other guy's like a revolutionary and like he volunteers for war.
Oh yeah. Who basically like turns into kind of like just this kind of iron-fisted
he becomes
military chief.
Yeah, he's like
it kind of turns into a monster.
Yeah. But then there's a moment where like he volunteers and the narrator says something like, happy men don't volunteer for war. And I wonder, and just like all these guys who just went off to the revolution because they just like hated their lives. And it's just like, I don't know, all this implied, like all this came flooding. I was like, oh, maybe this is like her dad the dad was no good. He was just like, I'm going to go have glorious battle and war. And she didn't respect it, or like wasn't into this. And it seems like she didn't agree with whatever he did that got him killed.
But who knows?
Yeah, but who knows?
It's just so, it's such an enigmatic line.
But it is, but anyways, but yeah, there are a few couples. There's couples defined by their absence. There's like the telegraph lady who seems to imply that she's part of some couple, like she's missing somebody, like potentially a love interest. There's
and sees her situation in this situation that she's being confronted with. Yeah,
just all these people miss it. Like there's a point where the mom says like, oh, this village, it's just all women and kids because all the men are gone. And
and the Russian, they use like the very like slangy Russian word for women there. It's really difficult to translate. It's like, I don't know, like it would be like birds almost, but that's not quite right. It's a weird one. That it's a woman using this slangy word.
But anyways, and there's also like he mentions this girl in the village because when they're having that friendship Zola.
Yes. Zora maybe. I'm looking through. I have Zoya. Yeah, Zoya. Which is like equivalent of Zoe.
And that's like an incredible moment where she mentions her. He like drops her name. He's like, oh, there was this girl who had a crush on me or whatever, but she was too young. And then you go. He goes to the neighbors and you meet the girl and you're like, oh, that's Zola, or Zoya, or Zora. Anyways, and there's just an incredible moment of electricity between them because he's been gone for so long, and he's like, oh, she's too young, and you're like, oh, she's like a year or two younger than him, like but she's like this idea of like he's finally seen her, like he hasn't seen her in so long, and now she's like completely different because she's grown up. She's probably like 15. But he's like, or like 16 or what. He's a teenager and whatever.
An adolescent rather than a kid.
Right. And it's just like, he's just like, he sees her as a teenager, and that moment is also very electric, where that moment between them and I don't know, that shot's incredible. Anyways, I don't know. The only other note I had was there's an air raid. The final obstacle, which he never gets past, like there's an air raid, and it's just like as if you didn't think this guy was like the best guy in the world. He's like saving children from a burning train. Like it's just all this footage of him like carrying kids out of a burning train.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder whether that's a literary nod. I mean, it might not be, but there's a bit where Pierre, like one of the main guys in War and Peace, like saves some people from a burning building. So
really?
I wonder whether it's like a nod to that, or it's a thing that happens in wartime.
Definitely.
And then we get more of the like the senseless tragedy of war of these people who've been
where you
killed.
see the dead mother just never like just radiant and beautiful amongst the flowers and just dead, and the kids and because you've just been talking to them on the train and everything,
and then also that in that moment you see some of the survivors like shove past him and like be muttering comments. And it's just like it's another like this doesn't feel like a conventional propaganda movie, because it's like people are not being ideal citizens because they just see a guy in a uniform and are basically having the reaction like,
well, somebody calls him good for nothing because they're
exactly. It's like he's like literally knocked out 2 tanks. The Germans are 2 tanks down because of this guy. It's like, how do they know that this guy?
Well, then he's literally saved all these people from the train. Like he's carried all this children, but they're carrying like gurneys and they're trying to do work, and he's just standing there shell shocked, and like they're like, "Get the fuck out of the way! What are you doing, you idiot?" And like.
Yeah, and also seeing probably reacting to the fact that like this is a guy in uniform who's young. What is he doing here? Why isn't he like driving the enemy out of our country so that we don't have to deal with what we're dealing with right now? So you can kind of see where they're coming from, but also it's like they don't know this guy.
But I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like nobody like we know this guy, and we've been with this guy for like an hour and a half now at this point. And we're like, we know this guy. We know the guy's not good for nothing. But it's just like, but then again, it's just like the world doesn't like, you never know. Like they don't know, they've got their own shit going on, and I don't know. It's again the whole thing of like the perception of like, what did this guy get to do? He got to be a soldier. He got to do one thing in his fucking life, and he got to be a soldier. But it's like, and then he had these 4 days. I think we were only with him for the 6 days, where you saw this amazing cross section of him traveling through the country and like interacting with these people, and and then I don't know, but the world never got to saw that. And like it even says like in the beginning it says we're going to tell you a tale his mother doesn't even know, because he never had a chance to tell his mom. He's like, about all these people I met, all these things I did on this she doesn't even find out why he's there. He's just there. And he's like, I gotta go now. He doesn't have time to explain like I was a hero or whatever. Because and then none of that really matters, because none of that matters to her. She's
and it's funny how earlier in the film he shrugs that off, because he has like that news like bit.
Yeah, he's got like an article from the paper or something.
Yeah, or whatever, and maybe he's gonna give that. He's going to show that to his mum, but he's not so fixated on like, I'm going to show my mum and the village what a hero I am. He like literally like rips it up for cigarette papers, because he's being, he's trying to help people have their one of their little like creature comforts.
I find it funny that they are all asking for paper, and then after they all have paper, somebody's like, and do you also have tobacco? Because like none of them have tobacco either. I think it's implied that they don't have tobacco. And it's just funny. But it is funny because he's like, well, they were like, why'd you rip it up? He's like, I got tons. And you're just like, he's got a bag full of those papers that he's gonna hand. I was like, I totally understand that. It's like he got his name in the paper. He bought like 10 copies. He's gonna show him. He's gonna hand him out and it's like, and but it is funny because he and again, it's just like him being generous and him being kind, and I don't know, whatever.
And that's another of the scenes where I think like this film counts as a tragicomedy, because you have this kind of like this banter between these soldiers, and they're talking about like this one having an affair with somebody, and they're saying like, oh, he's not pockmarked like you, and this guy goes, well, maybe there's something else wrong with him, and it's clearly like like some kind of like impotence-based joke, which is not very nice, but it's
but at the same time you switch and you see the amputee soldier is there, and you see all of this just like in his head, like this is all his thoughts, and like somebody else is expressing them, and you're just like, you see him like not saying anything, not really reacting, but you just know inside, like you get that he's just like, this is exactly what I'm saying, like this is exactly like, why is my wife gonna want me? I only got one leg. She probably found some guy who's way better or whatever. She'll find somebody, it's like this whole thing, like all of his insecurities being brought out.
Like voiced by some random, like loudmouth stranger.
As a joke. And then they all have a joke at the kid's expense because they're like, and that's when he finally laughs, I think, is when they're laughing at the kid because he's like, oh, I'm a radio operator, but I destroyed 2 tanks.
And they're like, sure you did.
Yeah, it's like, that's what radio, and like there's some guys like, that's just radio operators. They see a tank, they just put it in their pocket. Like, it's just like, I'm just like, yeah, you're right. It is, that is, I forgot how funny that scene is. It's really funny. And then he's finally like, no, and then he gets to like get the clipping out and whatever.
Yeah.
Because they've imbued his honor too much. And anyways, but yeah, you're right. It is, there is, I don't know. Yeah, there is humor to it. There's such a humor to it. I hadn't really thought of it as a funny film, but there are some really great, like, funny bits to it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it for the yucks.
No.
But, if someone is a bit like, oh, do I, because there are people who, like, who think they don't like Criterion films because it's just like, oh, yeah, that's people who just like the highbrow stuff. And it's like, no, it's not all like an intellectual exercise. Yeah. It's, this is as like Soviet late 1950s films go. This is pretty darn accessible.
I mean, it's stuff like Tarkovsky, as nice as some of that stuff is, and it's beautiful. I just watched Ivan's Childhood for the first time, and that was a revelation.
Oh, okay.
And I'd never seen that, and I was like, this is his first film. It's a masterpiece. And I was
a talented kid, that young Andryusha.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's Tarkovsky's first film, right?
It's his first feature. Yeah. And like literally 2-3 years after this. So I need to go back and watch it because having seen this, I would love to like side by side them.
Yeah,
so.
that's another one. That's another one where you find out. Well, anyway, not to spoil it, but like that's also very tragic.
Go back and listen to our episode, dear listener. We talked about it.
Yeah, but like, like some of the Criterion are impenetrable. They're difficult films to watch. Sometimes because of subject matter, because they're about something really horrible and dark, or sometimes they're like Tarkovsky can be very experimental, can be very like what's the word?
I am sculpting in time.
Exactly.
And I'm going to make this moment feel really, really long so that your brain goes places. And it's just like, and also, I don't want you to be entertained. That's not what cinema is for. That is a loose paraphrase, but that is pretty close to things he actually wrote down.
Yeah. So like they can be very esoteric. They can be very confusing and things like that. But like this is, I mean, it's a delightful watch. It's delightful to watch. There are painful moments. It's a sad film in the end. It does have almost, like you talk about it as a comedy, it almost does have a punchline, which is just like, but the punch is like a literal punch, like, and it's like a painful punch line where it just comes at the end and just like in terms of like, I was trying to think about this. I was like, this, and you ever seen Phoenix by Christoph Penholz, a German film?
No, it's not even on my radar.
That has one of the best endings I've ever, like, might have the best ending of any movie I've ever seen. And this, and
okay, add it to the never-ending watch
list. Oh, there's another good example I came up with. Just like the endings of these are so powerful in a way that, like that it's this buildup of everything, and then it all comes together at this like really emotional climax. And I think it's definitely worth a spin. It's definitely worth watching. And I think it is it's fun to watch. It's brisk. It moves. It's 88 minutes. Everybody's got time for that. I really appreciate that, especially as like somebody with kids now, just like having like sitting aside like 3 hours to watch a movie.
Oh yeah, that involves some life logistics.
Just like having that time, but just like having 88 minutes, I was like, I can knock out 88 minutes, and enjoy this. And it's so enjoyable. And it is a film that really sticks with me, and it has stuck with me for years. And like I said, I saw it in the middle of this like fire hose of films, like where I was just binge watching films, and it stuck.
The fact that it didn't get lost in the shuffle like that is quite a testament to it. And I am so glad that you gave me the occasion to finally get around to it and just explore it in some, like, hopefully some degree of depth. But just I mean, at this point in the show, we would normally say, like, would you recommend this to people? And I feel like the answer is like
100%. Yeah, I'm a big advocate for this film. I think it is a bit more obscure than it should be. I think it should be talked about, as much as people talk about Solaris or The Ascent or Letter Never Sent or these kind of Cranes Are Flying, those kinds of things. I think this is definitely should be talked about in great Russian cinema, great world cinema. I think it's just it's a really powerful and wonderful film. So, thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about it. Just and a good excuse to rewatch it, because it's a movie I love, but again, I know it's going to hurt me in the end. So.
And there are a lot of films to watch, and as this film, illustrates, life can be short, life can be finite. It's weird, because I was going to say this film, in a way, you can say it's about death and grief, but it's not morbid, because we don't have like the rows of crosses. We don't see a ton of bodies. This is not Come and See.
Yeah.
Which Come and See is also a masterpiece, and
I think
has its place and is a capital I, capital F important film. But like, I'm glad that they both exist.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, but like, it doesn't fall back on any kind of cliche of like, here are rows and rows of graves. Here's a battlefield of here's a bunch of wounded men or dead bodies or whatever. I think you only see really a handful of people, and they're people we meet. It's never like a lot of faceless victims. You see in the beginning, there's the murder of like his sergeant or whoever, who you meet briefly, and you get a bit of his, and then the Ukrainian mother who you see near the end, who dies, and you're never just confronted. It's never like, you never get that scene in Gone with the Wind where they pull back and there's the sea of endless injured men, that kind of thing. Like, that, it's never big on that scale. It always keeps you close to this kid, and that's where its power lies in, and that's where it becomes such a great kind of anti-war film, because you just you get to know this kid, and you think about every one of those graves has a kid inside, and every one of those kids was like, had a whole life that they wanted to live, and they didn't, because again, this is just like garbage ideology that as a species we ruined it for ourselves. And you're just like, you watch it and you're just like, nobody should ever go to like, I don't know. It was funny. I was watching this for the first time as a dad, and I was wondering if it would hit different, and it kind of didn't. I was still more focused on the mother-son, like just thinking about my own mother, like being separated from my own mother. I live very far from her, and from family and things like that. It's still really the crux of it. But like, even so, thinking about like, at the end, thinking out from her perspective of like her one son, her whole family, and thrown away for whatever, seemingly nothing. And it's just like, that kid should have just stayed there and fell in love with the neighbor girl and fixed the roof and had a great life, and it's just like, and he didn't. And the idea that it's called Ballad of a Soldier, and the one thing he feels like he's not is a soldier.
But
then
only very accidentally,
right? But then it also works because that's how he's defined in the world now. That's how he's defined for history, for everyone left behind, because that's all they'll see is...
That's the significant thing he got to do in his 19, or, maybe if he lived a few more years to... Because we don't know exactly when this is set. I mean, you probably could detective work it, and I didn't do my due diligence.
It's really,
It doesn't matter that much.
I think, with the geography, it's just like, you just need to understand when it is, vaguely where he goes.
Yeah, this is relatively early days of...
But yeah, and then it says, he's defined as a soldier, because that's what his grave says. That's how people will, if they see his grave, they'll know that they'll think of him as a soldier, not as this kid. And that's to think about that, all that, I don't know. Yeah. It's a lot, but it's such a well realized attempt to bring that emotion of the human to such a sprawling conflict, and kind of the things where you get kind of, I don't know, the weird gears of humanity and society and nations and all this bullshit. And
yeah.
We, I don't know, borders. Every border's a crime. I just, I don't know. I just every
yeah, preaching to the crowd on that one.
Anyways, but all this stuff is, anyways, yeah. So, all right. Sorry, I'll let you wrap. I'm sorry, you were wrapping it up, and then I started going off on this.
No, that's quite all right. It is just such a thought-provoking, but not in a kind of it doesn't scream I am a masterpiece.
No, but it really is.
But it
really is.
Yeah.
It's such a subtle piece, and you watch. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, it doesn't fall into cliches. It doesn't hit you over the head with what it's doing, but it's still...
It doesn't.
Powerful.
Was I a good man?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Sorry, I feel cheap dunking on. I mean, Spielberg's a great filmmaker, but sometimes it just...
That last scene is just, it's dumb. The morph is really, really aged badly. The idea of, I don't know, just that all that stuff is Saving Private Ryan is that opening Omaha Beach scene is untouchable, and then the rest of the movie is just kind of okay, well, I guess we have to justify having a movie now. We just wanted to it feels like that's where all the energy was, and it's just well, no, it's a movie. And so much of it is, I don't know. Anyways, but
I feel like I like it better than that, but I could definitely do without even the first bookend. I'm okay with. I mean, it wouldn't be a bookend if there was only one of them, but that intro, I'm okay with. The second bit is just rubbing your face.
Yeah. In it. I think it's a bit too maudlin at the end, but yeah. I don't know. I don't think I've seen it in full since it came out in the theaters, honestly.
Okay, that is a movie that you have to make time for.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Yeah, right.
not like this one. Again, this is shy of 90 minutes, which is again. That just takes a level of craftsmanship and discipline. There's not an ounce of Sarlo.
Yeah,
bringing it back on this one. I am both proud and ashamed of myself.
No, it's fine. But oh yeah, that's good. I mean, it's not Tarkovsky who's just I'll just kind of luxuriate on. I'll do a slow pan across an empty landscape for 10 minutes for no reason, or for whatever, for artistic reasons or whatever. But it's just no, we're it's propulsive, it's moving, and I don't know, it's great. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. Watch it if you've gotten this far in the podcast and you don't feel like you should watch it. I'm telling you, you should absolutely watch it. I don't know what else I could possibly say. It's great. I don't know. Whatever.
The only reason you wouldn't like it is I don't know if you have a bias against black and white.
Yeah.
There are totally legitimate reasons for having difficulties with subtitles. If you're dyslexic, I wish there was a good dub of this, because then it would be accessible to more people.
Yeah. I mean, you might feel weird about watching a movie that's so supportive of a Russian soldier right now.
Yeah.
But it's more just, it's not even about that. It's really not about that. It is weird. You're right. It is weird that they are very and I don't know I don't fully understand the intricacies of why he's set as a Russian soldier as opposed to a Soviet soldier, and why that ethnicity is important to them, and that, but however you feel about the Soviet Union too, that they're not. Well, I don't know. Every nation has a fucked up history, but like right now, Russia's doing some really fucked up stuff, and you might feel like, having a movie where we're like talking about how great this Russian soldier is might not feel good, but it's not even about that. It's not about his nation. It is about the kind of universality of these young men that we send to battle for fucked up, no good reasons, and they never come back, and all that's left is a sad mom on a road, and and that's sadly a universal experience. But I think it's one worth examining, and I think that it's a beautiful piece of art that's been made here. So
so no, absolutely agree with everything you said. And to end with the beginning, just the subtle touches in that opening where we see the mother, but then we also see juxtaposed to her, there's very little music used. We see that crowd of like, I don't know whether they're schoolgirls, like teenage girls, or whether they're like slightly older than that, but they're all young, and they're just having a great time being young, healthy people. And then we see this couple with like a newborn, and that just must be just so. There's just reminders of what she's lost everywhere, but the film doesn't shove your face in it. It just juxtaposes and shows you.
Right, because you have this woman who's in black. She looks like she's grieving. She's just slowly walking down a road. These teenage girls walk by her like she doesn't exist because they're teenage girls and they're just having a nice day and whatever.
Yeah. They're in the moment.
And that's fine. You think maybe they'll stop laughing when she's around, but they just keep plowing through, and you're just like, yeah, of course, why not? And then the couple with the baby, and they stop and they look at her, and because they're thinking about their kid now, they're thinking about the world that they're bringing their kid up in, and it's all there, just on their faces, like short shot, like of them, no word, no dialogue, and you get it all, and it's so good. The whole thing is just, I don't know, yeah.
And then the fact that Shura is wearing a black dress the whole time we see her just subtly links us back with the mother at the bookends. Yeah. It's there's no way that's an accident. But yeah, no, just what a film, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to wrap this up. So if you haven't already listened to our more general conversation about stuff that Matt's up to, go and give that a listen. But any last things you want to mention before we go?
Just please listen to Saint Misbehavin. There's no G at the end of Behavin, if you're Googling it. But that's a fun podcast. And if you're in the Oxford area, please come to the Oxford Comedy Festival. It's always a great time. And thanks again, Ali, for giving me an opportunity to talk about this movie I love.
You're welcome, Matt. This is an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. All right. Do svidaniya, folks.
Bye.
Я вернусь, мама!
Okay, that's it for another episode. If you haven't listened to it already, please go and catch my interview with Matthew Chadourne elsewhere on the podcast feed. Thank you to Sasha Ilyukovich and the Highly Skilled Migrants for the use of their song Cold in our intro. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give it and the show a positive rating and/or review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you haven't already, subscribe there as well so you don't miss any future episodes. If you enjoy the show in general and want to help it continue, please recommend it to fellow film fans in your life. I appreciate Russian and Soviet cinema is perhaps a hard sell at the best of times, which these most certainly aren't, so one idea might be to pick an episode about a film from a genre they already like and recommend them that one. If you're interested in my writing and other film-related work, please see the show notes for details on where to find more of it. Thanks so much for listening, and goodbye.
Вот и все, что мы хотели рассказать о нашем друге Алёше Скворцове. Он мог бы стать замечательным гражданином. Он мог бы строить или украшать земли садами. Но он был и навечно останется в нашей памяти солдатом. Русским солдатом.